Hey there. So this is going to be a quick little video on how to go about doing triangulation. And I say quick, it's going to be pretty rigorous, but we'll work through it as quick as we can. So the idea, if you saw my previous video, is you can do in 2D environments like AutoCAD developments of various parts. And in the last one I showed how to do a part like this, a transition from two shapes to the next. Well, the same concept can be applied to something more conical in shape, something like this, and that's done through the process of triangulation, whereas essentially what you're doing is taking a round object and creating figurative, we'll call it subdivisions, basically. So instead of having one face that's continuous, you're dividing it in this case into 12 faces, and I'm going to do it with this part. So it's kind of hybridization of both because you're doing the triangulation, but you're also doing it with a plane through it, cutting off part of it. So I've pre-drawn part of this, essentially this, and I don't have the center lines, but that's because I'm not trying to muddy up the area. It's gonna be pretty hard to keep up with as it is. But yeah, so the idea is like the last one, you have an origin point, and what you're doing is subdividing the base face at the bottom down here, and we will be labeling everything. And then from there, it's kind of hard to tell, but the idea is there are figurative lines that span from the origin to each of those points. So I'm not going to draw those in the top view. It's actually not necessary. But what is from those points, we will draw a circle from the origin to each of them. And that's what you're seeing here. Essentially, if you do this and you draw a line down from each of them to the point where all of these points meet, which is the bottom face, the length from the origin to that point is the true size of each edge. It's kind of complicated, but the idea is, say, we took the circle that we have for 0, 1, essentially that's going to be the accurate representation of 0, 1 prime. I'll explain it a little better here in a second. Let's just go ahead and start drawing. So the first thing we need to do is to go ahead and subdivide this bottom face. And then we'll go ahead and do the top part here a little different. So for now, the easiest way to go about this is to draw a vertical line, and then select the line, select array, and we'll choose the center and give it a value of 12 because we're going to do the same as what it shows. So from here, we just need to go through and snap from each origin point to each ending of each face, figurative face anyways. So I'm just quickly going through, and I do have intersection turned off so that there is no issue with any kind of erroneous snap. When you have so many parts like this, or lines like this, where possible, you should absolutely avoid using intersection as a snap option. If you have it on, it's just going to cause problems. I've actually been lucky, apparently. It did not cause any issues, and that's a rarity. So ideally, after that, put on ortho and just start drawing lines arbitrarily straight down from where that quadrant would be. Now, it's kind of hard to see probably, but it's going to be essentially the same process, and if it makes it easier once it's done, you could go in and delete this subdivision area, and that would help a little bit. But once I have all these, what I'm going to do is label stuff, so it's a little easier to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so pretty much done here, and you may have noticed I don't technically need to draw these end pieces here, because technically they're to the end of the part. I just drew the circles just to show that. But I'm going to go through now and label these faces. So I'm going to temporarily turn off my snap and put it on polar just to make this quicker. And you can choose where to put these points, but I think that I shall do it 1 here, and then you're supposed to unfold these clockwise as is shown here. You see it's going that way. And then also, I don't have the other one open. Also, the same with the other ones. They always do clockwise, and this is referenced by the technical drawing book. So, you know, I'm going to assume that's a standard. So essentially, we'll keep to that and go clockwise. It's kind of a pain to go through and label these, but it does help out. So we are going to maintain them throughout the entire process. Okay, we're making some progress here. Okay. And there's 12. Let's go ahead and put that origin in as well. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we have that. We could technically delete these. So I'm going to do that. We will be referencing these points again later, but just so it's a little clearer, you can kind of see now the idea of these lines passing through. So now that we have those, and it looks like I had a line snap off the vertical line path that it should have been. I'm going to put ortho back on and redraw that one. And we'll just trim all these off since we're here. Okay, so make sure we have one for each of these, and we do. Alright, so the next step will be to go through and, you know, we may as well, unfortunately, go ahead and label the rest of these as well. I'm going to just deselect everything that we've drawn. I should have copied that row over, but I failed to, so that's on me. And I'll just deselect all that, and we'll just go about copying it. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and put the origin in. And now we're matching. So I can click this line and I can see that this is 1 right here on the corner. So we'll go ahead and put 1 in, and then I'll do the same with this one. So this goes to 12 and 2, as you can see by following the curvature. So we'll go ahead and move those. And as you can probably already tell, essentially you don't necessarily have to check these. You can just tell by looking from our radial pattern that we have which will be next. But I'm still going to be safe and double check everything. So 11 and 3 is next, which as you can see, like I said, we can essentially just pick the next left one every time. So to confirm, this is 4 and 10, and it is. And at this point, I will just go ahead, now that we've, seen a clear pattern with 3 repeats, we'll just go ahead and move these without looking, and we'll just double check at the end. We'll get them a little closer. All right, we're getting somewhere. And finally 7. Okay, so 7, 6, and 8, you can pretty much see they all line up. So now what we can do is I'm going to turn my snap back on, from the endpoint, we just need to go through and connect the endpoints of these to each of those endpoints over here. And again, since intersection is off, we barely even need to scroll in at any point. And I believe that's it. So we have 1 for each. Yep. Alright, so now what we can do is, to clear things up, just delete this entire area. So, we still have our intersections maintained up there, but now we can just go ahead and draw all these circles we were talking about. And the reason we still need them, even though we have these lines, is simply that we're going to copy those over for our development. So it's convenient to have them, essentially. And as you can see, the top is getting a little crazy. We've got a bunch of overlapping circles, but that's okay. We'll make it work. Okay, so we have one at each. Yep, okay. So at this point, you know, what I would advise to do is just to kind of hold off on trimming all this stuff. We'll do that later. So at this point, what we'll do is just select everything and deselect this part. And we're just going to move everything up. So we'll do, looks like about 120. Okay, so that's a start. And unfortunately, because this process is so wild, we're probably going to use up a lot of the real estate that the title block technically doesn't have, but that's okay. So, you know, now we've got these shapes. What we can go do now is offset and do it through, and we will do from this edge, and this will be our first edge. So like when you're looking at, you know, this path would be like 0, 1 prime. So we will do about 350. How about that? And then we'll copy the circles. Actually, I take that back. So here's one more thing. So I mentioned we would hold off on doing the top. We would do it different. So the way we're going to do it different is this. Before, when doing these, you know, we had to go and draw out where these would be because we didn't know where these lines actually existed. Now that they're there, we know exactly where these lines come and meet at. We have that intersection already. So from here, we're actually just going to go ahead and connect the dots. No need to project anything, which is kind of nice. The one thing that we do need to do, unfortunately, is toggling back and forth between intersection and not. I found that a lot of times it seems that it doesn't like to cooperate over here when you try to get the endpoint. But if you are getting intersection, make sure to turn it off because, you know, there's no guarantees it'll mess it up, but it sure would be a pain to have to redo all of this because you had intersection on. So I'm just going to quickly toggle through and keep drawing all these with the intersection toggling on and off. A little slower, but that's okay. It's for the greater good, right? Okay, and just one more. Alright, so we've got an arc at each one of these. So now we'll actually go and copy. Oh, I'm about to sneeze. Okay, false alarm. Okay, so now I actually need to offset this, and we'll just go ahead and put it with the rest of it. So this would be our hard edge, and this gives us our center. So now we'll copy, and again, turn off intersection. Total pain. Paste it at the end of this, and I'm just going to delete this and extend that line back to the center. That's okay. We'll just manually do it. So there we go. Alright, so now we have our points labeled up here. So we just need to go through and confirm. So when you're looking, one goes to the shortest circle here. So this is actually our current ending for our first edge. So essentially now, in order to offset these, if you saw my past video, you may have already noticed, but the idea is if you have circles, they correctly translate information because a circle on a circle always ends up being the same distance it should be. So if you see I copied and pasted this, it perfectly went to the intersection when I copied it from here to here. So what I will do is draw one at the center of 7's point, meeting the intersection for 8's point. I'll copy it, and we're going to use it as a basis for everything over here. So now, from the ending of that first point, we'll snap to the intersection. And from there, we'll choose the next edge that'll be edge 2 as referenced here. And for edge 2, we are looking to do the next circle inwards. And if you actually just go ahead and take a glance ahead, each next edge is one further out. So we actually don't have to necessarily go and reference these. So what I will do is just continue drawing and just transitioning out one edge further every time. Okay, so now I'll copy that circle again. And I'm just going to paste a few of them out here. Save us a little time. And I'm going to go ahead and switch this. Now, as you can see, this is going to get a little convoluted because we have, you know, an intersection set. So be very cautious. And what I would advise, again, turn off intersection so you're getting that endpoint. And then we know where our next circle is. And I mean, you know, it's unfortunate to keep changing the intersection on and off, but I'm telling you, it's a pain. It really is to have to get to the end and realize, oh no, I misclicked just one time, and every one of these is wrong because of it, you know. So what we'll do is we'll keep doing this, and as we get to the final edge, I will show you kind of what's going on with some points, and then from there we will finish off the shape. Technically, depending on if the part is symmetric like it is in this case, we could just mirror it, but I'm gonna do the full process just to show that it is repeatable and, you know, just get some reps. And I always think it's better to get practicing with this kind of stuff. So, and I actually broke my own cardinal rule there on that one. So I turned intersection on. We did not need it on. There we go. And then from here, we'll choose that endpoint. And we're going to this one next because we did this one, then this one, this one. All right, and same deal. And slowly but surely we're getting there. Okay, so next. All right. There we go. And the last one. Turns out I had a bunch of these that I didn't need, but that's okay. Okay. All right, so our final one. Now we can go back and compare these. So we started over here. So we have edge 1. And I'm going to just copy all of this again so we can paste it around for reference. Okay, so let's just squeeze it in and start working on it. Did I miss one? I did. I missed one somehow. Alright, so what we have here is 0.1. Now, I will point out that this is only 1 through 7, so technically we do not need the bottom ones yet, but we'll get there. We're definitely going to draw it all, so. And then there's 4. And then 7 is our midway point, I guess you would say. So, you know, looking, 7 is the end. So essentially at this point we have completed the first half without the cut. So from here, you know, the same process is repeatable, or technically you can do a mirror, and you know, you could choose the 2 endpoints and say no, and that would be your other half. But just in case, you know, for some reason you are doing a part that's more complicated, and like I said, just for the sake of continuity, I will draw the other half as well. So alright, so from here, we're going to keep on pressing on. And I got to turn my snap back on. So now what we'll do, instead of continually ramping up, is we're going to ramp back down. So we will do the one circle less than the last one we just did. Alright, and we're going to need a few more circles, so I'm going to copy some more. So then from here, same process. We're essentially just going to keep on plugging along here. And you may be wondering, at what point do we connect these? What we'll do at the end is we will actually spline them all together. You know, I thought there would be a better way to go about it, and if you've heard of one, by all means chime in the comments. But as far as I've seen, there is no good way to connect them. So essentially all you do is just do a spline connecting all the dots, and that is somehow acceptable. So you know, I guess it is what it is, basically. Okay, so we're moving on along. And we're going to reduce to this one. Wish it was a hotkey to turn off the intersection. That would be nice. It's funny because I'm a big fan of it in pretty much any application except for when you're doing auxiliary views or developments, you know, because it always just ends up messing up. I've drawn these things way too many times and it always somehow bites you, you know, every time. So just got to be safe with it. Alright, so this should be the final one. I'm going to double check. So we have from this line to this line, this one, this one, this one. And yeah, okay, so now we've got this huge convoluted thing. So now all we need to do is go and do a spline, which, you know, I can't remember where spline is, to be honest. Nobody ever uses that really. So now they have different splines instead of just regular. I wonder if I can just top it. Cool, okay. So now from here, we will turn off the intersection again, go to endpoints, and we're just gonna quickly jump through each of these endpoints, connecting the dots. And enter. Okay, so now we have that portion done. So now we just need to go through and move our points into place, which I will do now. And you may notice we do have 1 twice because obviously 12 does go back to 1 to close it out. So there's the bottom, you know, and it does look weird, but that's because, you know, technically it is round, so you do have this odd curvature to help make this train shape up here. Okay, so from here, we have to do essentially the same thing. So if you look, and I'm not going to bother to label these, but if you wanted to, you could put like 1A, 1B, 1C, you know, and so on, all the way through, or 1A, 2A, 3A. But basically the idea is the same. So from the right, it's the shortest, and then it, you know, continually moves out 1 step. So for 1, which apparently I moved instead of copied. So for this one, we want to make that one the first one that is split. So we're going to do break at points for all of these. And unfortunately, we will have to be working with intersection. So these will be quicker because all you have to do is break them every time. So we broke that one. So now we'll go through, do the same thing. And of course, we'll just move down 1 every time. So now we'll do this one. And I'm going to kind of stagger here a little bit. Oh, actually, I forgot to do this one. Sorry. Okay, so now do this one. Alright, so now we'll do this one. And as you can see, this goes a lot quicker this way. The second part's always easier because, you know, you're just essentially following a path and you don't have to go through and do all that extra nonsense. Okay, making pretty good progress here. Alright, so at this point we are now halfway through. And you know, you can tell this is the same concept. You're gonna reduce now one lap every time. So this one. Okay. And we're almost there. Oh, okay. So there we go. Now we just need to do that same spline trick. Alright. And I am gonna actually go turn off intersection again. I missed there. FYI, if you do misclick like that, there is that undo button. Super clutch. Which I did bad again, I believe. So I'm gonna undo that one. Good old O-track over there trying to mess me up. Okay, so now, just like that, we have this wonderful shape here. And from here, you know, if you're in my classes in particular, I want these to be folding lines. It just makes sense because essentially, you know, for one, these hard edges aren't present. But two, everything folds but these. You know, this is the meeting point and all of this is just a fold line. In fact, if you want to keep all of this, you can also put the fold lines here. And if you want to take it a step further, you could put them up here, connecting all of those intersections. Whoops. Shows like the one that doesn't matter, but you know, you could do it at all these crossings over here. So like from here over to each intersection like you see here, and so on, and then make all of them hidden lines or folding lines. But for me, you know, I don't really care too much about that, so I'm going to leave these as is, leave them projection. That way if I want to turn off these layers later, I can. But you have the general layout, and you know, like I said before, I do think it's ideal to have this edge parallel to this edge. It's a nice layout to do that. And you know, once you have this general setup, if you want to spruce things up, you can go and you know, set up maybe something like this where you're doing like a quarter cut. Oop. Sorry, I think my mouse is going out. I've been having to do some weird stuff lately. But so from here, you know, you could do just a simple trim, you know, something like this, and this says, hey, you know, like, it's a general concept, but let's save some eyes and space. I mean, because that's a lot to look at, you know. And you can do the same over here as well, actually. But in this time we'll do, in this case, we'll do a half view. Oh, look at that. Would you look at that? See, this is what I was talking about. Actually, I had bad luck still, though, on this one. Okay, sad day, sad day. So, looks like we missed a click somewhere. Yep, bummer. That's okay, it wasn't a big one, so. Alright, so minor adjustment, but that wasn't too bad actually. As you can see, we're good here. It was just a misclick on the center line up here. So I'll re-break that real quick. That's another part of, you know, doing your due diligence. When you go and spruce things up, you may catch little things like that. And you know what? Just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and grab that O over here. I just realized we didn't have that, but sure would look nice with it, wouldn't it? And turn off snap. Where is it? There we go. So yeah, you know, basically like I was saying, we could go through and just do a little number like this. Ah, sad day. You know, and honestly, if you want, it's up to you. I think it's nice to keep these, but you could delete these as well. They are essentially just a projection. The only reason I even leave this one is just to show the understanding, you know, that this circle is what you use to translate all these. But, you know, you don't need all of that. But same deal, you know, I'm going to trim out some of this extra hoopla here. You know, I feel like triangulation is such a weird concept, you know. I mean, it works perfectly in practice, but I feel like if you leave all this projection, it does help. You never know when you may need it again, but it also just gives you insight as to what the heck you were doing in case you ever forget it. So, last thing to do, we will go in and do a center mark, adding in the original stuff that the book required. You know, obviously, like I said, I excluded it because it would have been kind of hard to see all that if we had it before. And then we'll go in, and from our midpoint here, connect there. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. You know, it is a complicated process, but practice makes perfect. And if anybody has any questions about triangulation, just let me know.